Good morning and welcome to the Joint Subcommittee on General Government. Would the Secretary please take the roll?
Senator Goycochea? Here. Senator Harris? Here. Senator Neal? Here. Assemblywoman Backus? Present. Assemblywoman Brown-May? Here. Assemblywoman Kasama? Here. Assemblyman Miller? Present. Assemblyman O'Neill? Here. Chair Peters?
Thank you, and everyone is here. Just a brief housekeeping. Please silent your phones and computers so we're not interrupting folks as they're speaking. We have several budgets today, all under the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. We're going to go ahead and let Director Scolari go through her presentation. We will take the tourism-related budgets first and then move into the other budgets and ask questions along the way. Please go ahead. Remember to state your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Scolari, the Director of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, here on behalf of the Division of Tourism. I thought I would just briefly review what our budgets do for the state. We promote visitation to Nevada to support vibrant tourism economies statewide. We do that with the goal of enriching the lives of Nevadans through local spending. We do that through these categories of work. They are marketing, research, public relations, tourism industry development, and the publication of Nevada Magazine. That work is led by a guiding document. Our strategic plan has the following programs: evolution of the Travel Nevada brand, destination development, which I'll talk about a little bit later, visitor experience, which supports hospitality, training, resources, and outreach, industry relations, Discover Your Nevada, which is a campaign specific to residents, domestic and international market development. We have a bit of a reorganization that is supported by some of the enhancements we'll talk about today. And one of them is the creation of Budget Account 1522. So Budget Account 1520, which currently exists, will hold all of the department-wide operating expenses, all of our lodging tax transfers to the cultural agencies in the department, and personnel who serve multiple divisions. That work happens now, but those positions are paid for out of the Division of Tourism budget account. Budget Account 1522 will become the Division of Tourism budget account and will hold all of the operating expenses related to tourism. The 10 positions that will then be specific to administration and do work for the entire department will do things such as strategic planning and implementation and reporting, public affairs, marketing, fiscal management, and information technology. Enhancement 226 will create a Deputy of Tourism position. Right now, as director, I serve as director of the department as well as the director of the Division of Tourism. So this will create a Deputy of Tourism to share the burden of work. We hope to offset that new position by eliminating 2 Admin 2 positions that have been unfilled for some time. Those positions were part of the COVID layoffs that happened in our department, unfortunately. We always have some trouble filling those positions, and we hope to have our remaining Admin 3 take on many of those tasks. Destination development, I'll touch on and describe a bit in that's one of our enhancements. The concept of destination development is that we go into communities and ask local stakeholders to create a long-range tourism asset plan and then fund the priorities of that plan. We are currently engaged in our first cycle of destination development funding with funds from the Department of Commerce EDA. And that work is evaluated by a working group in which Travel Nevada staff are joined by the staff from the Division of Outdoor Recreation, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, UNR, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition. We also seek additional guidance and advice from the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office, the Indian Commission, Division of Museums and History, and the USDA when necessary. Those 6 projects are, as I said, currently in process of the evaluation to create a plan, and then the final award will happen in FY24. So destination development grants in enhancement 233 we are seeking to fund destination development grant on an ongoing basis, essentially. So starting in FY25, we'd hope to award $1 million a year through the program. The next application cycle for this lodging tax funded award would be in February or March of 24 and distributed in FY25. And as I said, this ongoing investment just helps our communities be better places to live and work. Nevada Magazine has long struggled to be fiscally healthy. In statute, it is an enterprise fund, so it has to support itself as a business. Enhancement 900 proposes the merger of the Nevada Magazine budget account with the Tourism Development Fund. And what this will do is absorb the personnel of the magazine into the marketing team of Travel Nevada, and those people who are extremely skilled writers, photographers, very knowledgeable about the state, will then lend those skills to the overall marketing effort. And we hope that any advertising revenue that we do collect, which that is promising. We publish the magazine quarterly now and distribute about well over 200,000 of them. It's been very popular. The new publication is a hybrid product, so it's the traditional long-form Nevada magazine and then also a trip planning resource. So any ad revenue that we do collect, we would really like to start to create educational materials for students and join some of our sister agencies like NDOW and state parks and deliver educational material to students so that they can begin to explore Nevada and see all of our state parks and museums and discover all the wonderful ways they can be a better Nevadan. And that's it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Scolari. We have a few questions from the committee. I'm going to go ahead and start with Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director, for meeting with us early on and also the presentation today. Can you please discuss the challenges in the daily activities and operations of the department and the anticipated benefits and efficiencies of establishing a new Tourism Cultural Affairs Administration budget?
Thank you for your question. I have always had to prioritize the tourism work. Since I am the director of tourism, the tasks just kind of fall more heavily in that area. And since the department was formed, we've always felt that's been just a little bit lopsided. I would love to have the opportunity to do more strategic planning with the cultural directors. I think there's some opportunity to do some sponsorship development for our state museums that I could help with. I also currently administer all of the federal funding that we've acquired. We don't have any staff to do that. Angie Mathieson, my fiscal manager, helps me, but it's just the two of us handling that right now. So I think as we layer on those tasks, there is much we could do to expand the potential of the department if I had another deputy to help with it.
Thank you for that response. We generally, in these budgets, as we're hearing kind of the elimination of these supported positions, are wondering about the workload that's already been spread among staff and just the sustainability of that. And wanting to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to support your folks on getting their job done and being able to feel like they can do their job. So with the elimination of these two administrative positions, I realize that they're lower paying positions. Do you feel like your staff is able to take on the current load and help really build in the tourism goals you have?
I believe they are. We've learned to be a little more resilient, and all of us have taken on more than one job more often than not in the department and the division. Even historically, I think those lower admin, more entry-level positions have been difficult to fill with reliable people. And so that time spent training them and the oversight kind of takes away from the other prioritized items of workload. And I just feel like we can do it. I think we've learned how to do it. We are looking forward to filling the Admin 3 position, and a lot of the tasks, just filling out forms and reporting things and being assisted daily with traffic management of projects, that sort of thing. We do look forward to that with the Admin 3 position in the division.
Thank you. We have another question from Senator Harris. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How was the recommended salary level determined for the new deputy director position? And what existing state positions were used as a comparison to that salary level?
I just looked at other deputy director positions for an average. I looked at the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I'm now forgetting the other ones I looked at. I think I looked at 3, but that was just an average. I, of course, defer to the committee to determine what the appropriate level would be.
And Madam Chair, I have one more, if that's okay. Thanks so much. Could you just confirm for us that the agency would continue to have sufficient resources if the recommendation to eliminate 2 vacant administrative assistant positions is approved?
Yes, we would. I really have talked to staff about it, and I feel like everyone is comfortable with the level of work they're currently doing. And as I said, they could use an administrative help, but I think that one position is going to be satisfactory.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I know the value of these administrative positions can be so great, especially when you're growing. Having someone to just manage those day-to-day tasks while you're designing and developing programs and ideas it's invaluable for sure. I have Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for the presentation and like my colleague said, coming around and meeting with us, sharing the magazine and all of that. My questions are in relation to the transition of the magazine, the recommended transition of the magazine. Can you discuss the agency's efforts and progress towards financial stability of the Nevada Magazine budget, as well as any challenges to reach and maintain its financial stability?
We have, over the past 3 years, attempted a number of things. One of them was digital advertising, but the subscribers and the visitors to the website really didn't support that effort well enough to bridge the financial gap that was needed. They've done a number of things. They've done freelance design work for some of our tourism partners, designing and publishing brochures and guides, that sort of thing. But really, I've always felt that kind of detracted from their mission, which is to educate both residents and visitors about Nevada. And when they're spending so much time just trying to build that kind of side revenue, it detracts from those priorities.
So, can I continue? Yes. Okay. So if I remember correctly, and when we met, you mentioned that the majority of copies are now going out of state. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know about how many are going out of state versus within the state?
I will ask my deputy director that question. The majority of them do, so we offer you can sign up for to have the magazine delivered on travelnevada.com. So the majority of them are just mailed to those recipients. We do have the guide distributed to racks throughout the state at some of our border entry points, in airports, that sort of thing. We have a list of common distribution points, but the majority are out of state, yes.
Majority are going out of state. So I'm just curious, in the seeking of advertising ads and dollars and things like that, and I think we kind of talked about this, have we reached out to like travel companies, like airlines that are actually bringing those folks who are receiving the magazine out of state to come into state? I just feel like that could be another significant source of potential advertising revenue.
I agree with you. I think that's a good idea. And yes, we do need to further develop the ad revenue base. There is an opportunity to do that, and we're going to pursue it.
Okay, good deal, because I think it's a really great magazine. And Chair, I just have one last question, or maybe two, sorry. I think it's a really great magazine, and so it's exciting to hear that people are requesting it majority out, because we're a tourism state, so we need everybody to know as much as they can about what's happening in our state. But now, with the transition, can you share with us what are the benefits to the state with the continued production and distribution of the Nevada Magazine and Visitor Guide, and how these benefits are measured?
I think the benefits are measured a number of ways. Some of them are, of course, anecdotal, but we do have, whenever possible, ways to drive the readership to travelnevada.com so we can accurately track them digitally. We have used QR codes in the magazine. We use links. Obviously, just the number of magazines that are ordered is a way to do that. It's always tricky with print publications. It's the least trackable medium in advertising, but we try to do it. We try to work it in so that we have some ways to do that.
Turned it off. Okay, thank you. So on that particular note, I'm just curious, the local businesses, the Nevada-based businesses that are advertising, do we follow up with them to find out what type of benefit they're getting if they are seeing tourists come in and maybe they've scanned the QR code or they've had like a promo code, just so that we can kind of get an idea of how the magazine is helping them?
We have surveyed advertisers. We did that at the beginning of this assessment of the financial health of the magazine. We did another one in terms of the benefit, their satisfaction with the content. We didn't survey them for, well, I believe we did, for some of the changes they'd like to see, but we could certainly do that more often.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I think that would be helpful for the businesses that are advertising locally to at least know, and then also for us, right, we'll know what the reach is and how effective it is in supporting our local businesses. And then my last thing, and I'm done, Chair, thank you. Can you please discuss the anticipated efficiencies as well as operational changes if the governor's recommendation to merge the Nevada Magazine budget to the Tourism Development Fund budget is approved?
Certainly. What we'd like to do is create what we're calling a content studio. So with all of our creative staff working together as a team, finally, we really have the opportunity to take the long-form content created in the magazine and develop a workflow to kind of parse that out into all the other content channels that we have. So travelnevada.com, all of our social channels. We work with media partners to develop content. So it's really working smarter, in my opinion, and better utilizing staff. Occasionally, we've duplicated efforts if the the Nevada Magazine team is out covering a certain community or an event or a new attraction, and Travel Nevada is doing the same thing. That's just not very efficient.
Hit it. With the transition into the tourism, with this transition, you're not planning to stop the advertising procurement, right? We're still going to go after advertising dollars. You just want to refocus the use of those dollars.
Correct. And the intent is to relieve the staff of the burden of pursuing advertising, just to make payroll. But as I said, I think there is potential there, and we do want to capture that revenue. I also think there will be enough efficiencies that we could potentially have fewer billable hours from any outside consultants if we have a really effective in-house creative team.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the questions. Chair Neal has a question. Is there anyone else on the committee who has questions? I can put you on line. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have two questions. One is in regard to the RSCVA. What's the line, right, between what you do and what they do, and where do they partner with you when it comes to the northern part, or Reno and Washoe tourism that needs to be developed? I mean, because it's like I was listening to you talk, and 10 years of GA memory just shot right up, and I was just like, it's duplicative. I know you're statewide, but I don't see just tell me what's the partnership with RSCVA with you.
Well, they cover Washoe County, so that's their tax base, and so those are their constituents. And we work with them often, so that is one of our drive market hubs, and obviously Reno Tahoe Airport, that's the entry point for Northern Nevada. So we rely on them to kind of be the ones to be the experts in Washoe County, but because we know and market the entire region, Carson Valley, Lake Tahoe, Virginia City, and beyond, we partner with them often to supply them with information about those areas. We do a lot of domestic missions together. We used to call them sales mission. We aren't really selling when we do it, Travel Nevada, but we are inspiring people to book stays. That's the whole point of it. And we partner all the time. Our Reno Tahoe territory has many of the RSCVA staff on it. So we really do consider them partner in the same way we partner with the LVCVA in the South. So they do a great job of marketing their metro centers, but we want them to market those extended stays in the rest of the state.
Madam Chair, can I have a follow-up? Please go ahead. So, but where do you share dollars in the marketing goals, right? Do you share dollars at all, right? Because if you have LVCVA in the South, and we've seen their budget, you have RSCVA up here, there is direct overlap in money. You both, well, RSCVA, I know, use room tax. And so what I'm wondering is, you know, if you're struggling with the Nevada magazine, right, which has been ongoing for a while, where is the crossover in the share of money, right? There should be, or I believe there should be.
Well, they receive the lodging tax that goes directly to the local municipality, which always happens. We get the 3/8 of 1% statewide. We don't often share, well, as I mentioned, when we go on a mission, a domestic mission together, say, or attend a trade show together, sometimes we'll have receptions with invited tour operators, people that we're both targeting that have interest in the area, and we will share the cost of those. We're currently working on what we call a bleisure program, which is to entice people who are already committed to attending the convention center and attending conferences and meetings in Reno to be educated about the entire region so that they will extend their stay, so that they'll stay beyond the meeting or the conference in the area. And we're going to co-sponsor the cost of that.
Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up. So for LVCVA, what's the crossover relationship? They have a significant budget, or a nice enough, that covers a large region in the South. So
Correct.
when we talk about, you mentioned tourism partners, where are your partners in the LVCVA relationship to the work that you need to perform, and how you're able to develop your marketing dollar strategy so that in the South, in Clark County, that's, I guess that marketing and advertising effort is better supported?
The LVCVA does have what we would call a rural programs manager, and we work with her in some of the smaller communities in Clark County, like Boulder City, Mesquite, and though they do have that, are tasked with marketing those smaller communities, that's really the overlap, right? So we focus on some of the smaller communities in Washoe County as well, and work together to get those extended stays. As I said, most people, when they fly into Vegas, want to stay in Vegas proper, and we work together to focus on getting them out in the state.
Thank you for that. And so my second question is entirely different. I'm probably not going to probably talk to you offline about this overlap. But you mentioned the federal grants that you have to administer. What I'm interested in are the federal grants other than ARPA, other than the one-time. Are there any other federal grants that you're administering? Because the ARPA is fairly new. So are there other grants that we're not aware of?
I'm administering the state EDA award for tourism and outdoor recreation. And I'm also administering a competitive EDA award for adventure centers.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the question. I had another question that came up related to the movement of funds and the reorganizing of how the magazine is funded. Do you think you'll need to modify your BDR to address those advertising funds, funding streams since we're moving your base funding into a different, from a different category? Does that make sense? Like, do you still have the authority, I guess, if you move your funding mechanism to accept those advertising dollars and use them?
Yes, a statute revision would be necessary, and I did suggest those revisions.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then on the destination development, I have one question for you. Well, two questions, I guess. My first question is, can you provide a status update of the destination development grant, including the anticipated date for all of those ARPA state tourism grant funds to be expended?
Those have to be expended by November of 2027.
And where are you in the process of distributing those funds?
We're working with three awardees first, our first cohort, and they'll be funded. The funds will be distributed by July, so in 2024. Then we'll begin on the process with the second cohort, and hope to do that, make the final awards by the end of the year.
No, that sounds good. 3 awards, though. How many applications did you get?
It's 6 total.
Okay.
For the 2 million, and we had 16 applicants.
Okay. And can you just give us an update on what was it about those 10 applications that didn't get accepted? Were you just limited by the number of dollars, or was it that those applications didn't meet criteria? What was it about those 10 applications that didn't qualify?
It was kind of a mix of both. Some of them didn't meet the, we had a rubric for scoring, and some of them didn't meet all of the eligibility requirements. And we really hope to kind of foster those applicants and guide them to be ready for the next grant cycle. I don't think we're going to give up on any of those concepts. I think some of them just weren't fully developed.
Okay, thank you. I hope that we are able to work with them. I think it's grant applications are a beast, and I know even our agencies have a hard time sometimes meeting the criteria for certain grant applications. So I look forward to seeing those folks succeed if they can. Are there any other questions from the committee? All right, we're ready to move on to the next set of budgets. If that's okay.
All right, thank you.
And I will let you decide who, I have Indian Commission and the Stewart School that I'm wondering if you're taking to get the 2 of those together?
I believe Stacy will
Okay.
be next.
Perfect, thank you. Please remember to state your name for the record. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Emma, good morning. I'm Stacy Montooth. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. I've had the pleasure of addressing this group as recently as Valentine's Day. Everyone was involved with Nevada Tribal's Legislative Day, and so I didn't bring slides. I think all of you know, without getting into the weeds too much, the Nevada Indian Commission was created by statute in 1965. Our charge is to improve the quality of life for our 28 federally recognized tribal nations and the urban Indians who choose to make Nevada home. In the latest census, that number reflected 105,000 constituents. The Nevada Indian Commission focuses on 4 specific areas. That includes health and human services, education, the environment, and economic development, again, for that 100,000 people that are the first managers, the first caretakers of this land. The other huge focus of the Nevada Indian Commission is operating the Stewart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum. I'm happy to answer any questions about what I believe are the 3 significant enhancements for either Budget 2600, the Nevada Indian Commission, or Budget 2601 for our Stewart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum.
Thank you so much. I have Assemblywoman Backus with the first set of questions. Please let me know if you have other questions.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Director Montooth. My question circles back to the $20 million grant funds that were provided for COVID. And I can't remember if when we first heard the budget presentation, but we had recognized that the $20 million got put in both fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. So I was kind of curious, has an amendment been submitted to the governor's finance office, and just kind of the status on making sure that it's only just the $120 million from COVID funding? And then also just wanted to check on the status of working on those grants for the tribes. Thank you so much.
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission, for the record. Thank you, Assemblymember Backus, for those questions. Let me start with the appearance that the Nevada Indian Commission is going to be the recipient of 2 separate funding opportunities, $20 million, not just in the current fiscal year, but moving forward. Working closely with the LCB and with our fiscal team, there evidently is an idiosyncrasy, if you will, with the software, and that reflects that this would be a 2-time funding opportunity, which is absolutely not the case. The Nevada Indian Commission was granted $20 million last year, still during the Sisolak administration. And that is a one-time funding from the governor's recovery funds or the federal ARPA dollars. Your second question about how the process is going, quite frankly, it's been extremely much more complicated than I thought it would. Chair Peters, you mentioned the difficulties in applying for grants. You know, there's such diversity in our 28 tribal nations. You know, we have a handful that have great infrastructure and they have robust staff, and filling out up to a 50-page grant application is all in a day's work for them. You know, we have at least 6 tribal nations that are struggling to make sure that their phone bills are paid. So having a really extensive, in-depth application is really a struggle for them. My intent, my naive intent, was that we were going to transfer $700,000 to 28 different bank accounts. However, again, working with our fiscal team, working with LCB, working with the GFO, I have learned that the state has a rigorous process. We actually have a meeting plan to meet with several experts, several professionals in the GFO, including a grants management expert. We have to go through the requirements, templates. We have to talk about the reimbursement process. Again, I thought we were distributing money. It turns out the state requires our tribal nations to only get up to 25% of that $700,000. So we have to go through the reimbursement process as well as staffing and administrative costs. The Nevada Indian Commission is powered by 5 people. I thought that that would be plenty, including our new program officer, again, to distribute $700,000 to 28 different tribal governments. The LCB, the GFO, has informed me that we have to have personnel to oversee that. So that means contracting with someone who can oversee not just the application, but the progress. And again, this $700,000 will go out with a successful application. They get 25% of the $700,000 and then have to prove that they're spending it in a fiscally responsible way, which means they have to have documentation and we have to have on-site visits in order to do that. So unfortunately, much, much more complicated, Assemblywoman Backus, than my original hope.
And I just want to follow up because I think some of the smaller tribes, like you were saying, the ones that have the hard time paying their phone bills are probably the ones more at need for these dollars, whereas the sophisticated tribes have other economic revenues. But I just wanted to make sure, because I would hate to see those smaller, well, I'm assuming smaller, but tribes that just don't have the economic funding that they don't have to upfront their own dollars, that the 25% that they're first funded they're going to get that money first. They're not going to have to spend their own money that they may not have in order to receive grants. Because I heard the word reimbursement and I got really nervous.
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission, for the record. I too was nervous when I heard that. I did learn from an ASO4 with the GFO that there is a precedent. There have been occasions in the past where the state of Nevada has granted those grants up front. So we'll be working hard to make sure that that happens, again, in those specific instances where our tribal nations just don't have the staff to complete paperwork and all of the rigorous requirements that the state has set up.
Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Yeah, Chair Neal, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm super curious about, so in the contracting that you're going to have to do for the smaller tribes, have you estimated what that cost is going to be in order to find someone who will help them, right? And ultimately, it's like you're sitting with the money, but without the money. And then you have to find a person, pay the person, and then ask for a reimbursement for that cost. Is that how it's going to work?
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission, for the record. What I know is that the professionals in the GFO, our fiscal team, have conveyed to me that typically up to, I believe it was at least 3%, sometimes up to 5% of grants can be spent on administrative costs. I've also learned that the best approach for our agency is to use a contractor. I have the name of 2 different organizations. Off the top of my head, I remember Manpower, to contract someone who has not just fiscal experience, but in this instance, it's going to be critical that we have someone to provide oversight and work with our tribal nations who's familiar with Indian country, who knows exactly who and where to get to connect with that Yamba. I can't imagine that the administration of this would cost over $300,000, which is little compared to a $20 million grant. Can I remind you that our whole entire agency runs on about $650,000, so we're used to doing a lot with little.
I understand that. Quick follow-up, Madam Chair. I understand that, doing a lot with a little, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out is that if it's a drawdown, right, then that means that $300,000 has to be expended from your budget and then asked for reimbursement to then assist the tribes. And so ultimately that leaves you with $350 for your budget. that has nothing to do with the 20 million, because what's the length of time that you're being told to be reimbursed if you do the upfront, I guess, fiscal management for the tribes?
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission. With all due respect, Senator, may I respectfully request that I be able to come back to you with that answer? Again, we've actually had 2 meetings planned to discuss the requirements for the grant opportunities with this 20 million, and unfortunately, we've had to cancel twice. But I would absolutely be happy to pose that question directly to the experts in GFO and LCB to get that answer.
Okay, because what I'm understanding is that reimbursement is not required, that it can be done in a different manner, and I guess I'm wondering why they're doing it that way, because it's almost like the one-time funding that was perceived as this amazing grant to the tribes is becoming more complicated and will slow it down. And so it might even be an option for the committee or the larger committee to consider swapping the ARPA funds and just giving a one shot of 20 million that you can manage without all of this foolishness. Because your charge is to have to manage the economic interest and welfare of the tribes. And so I feel like maybe we should be reconsidering a different way, because it's we're although amazing, we gave you something that is going to be difficult for you to implement and bring to fruition, I believe, even within 12 months, which creates a problem. And so that's just food for thought for the committee, that if we have the ability to do a one shot and swap it, we know how to manage 20 million, or to give it to someone who does. But it's unfair. I think it's unfair. I think it's but we also need to get an answer on if there's a way not to do it in a reimbursable way, that the GFO needs to switch the manner in which they're making you do it, if there's a cleaner way and simpler way for you to do this. And so I'll close that out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for those comments. Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Montooth, I had a number of my constituents in the office in the last couple weeks, and I think where we're really breaking down, and again, you hit it, we've got smaller tribes, we've got, I got complaints from Elko Colony, the Battle Mountain Colony, the Goshutes, the South Fork, again, there doesn't seem to be enough consultation with these smaller groups and your office in how this is going to work. So I hear you say you're going to have meetings. I think you need to get back to your 28 tribes first and foremost, and get some consultation in place, because they are definitely, some of the smaller tribes are feeling left out. And so I guess what I'm saying, you're going to have to get your game plan in shape before you come to us and say, okay, we understand we've got the 20 million. This is how we plan to, how we plan to grant it out. And it will be a grant cycle. And I recognize the difference in tribes, but you say, between Yamba and Ivapaw and then we get the Tomokes in South Ruby. They all think they are entitled to a piece of this, and they are. How are you going to get it? And so I don't think, what I'm hearing on the ground level, you've got the interaction going on between your 28 tribes that you're going to have in order to really grant this money out. Just your thoughts on that?
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission, for the record. I appreciate that feedback, Senator. Working through Intertribal Council of Nevada, sort of the United Nations of our tribes, we've had 3 really robust discussions about the best way to distribute the money. You all are probably aware that during the pandemic, the federal government provided direct funding to all 574 federally recognized tribes. The United States Treasury has a very complicated formula for that distribution. It includes how many tribal citizens each government includes. It involves how many employees that tribal government oversees. It involves land base. through the discussions that I have been moderating with our tribal leaders, which didn't include all 28 at both sessions, it was overwhelmingly decided that it just should be equal, that Lovelock Colony should get the exact same amount as the Las Vegas Paiute tribes. Perhaps that is where my naivety thought, okay, we're going to cut 28 checks, $700,000 to everybody. Thank you, sir.
And I thank you for that. And I understand you're dealing with, it's not truly apples and oranges, but I just want to make you aware that a lot of my constituents, the people I'm talking about in Eastern Nevada, are very dissatisfied with how this is going to work. And I agree with you. A simple grant, one-page grant, and saying, hey, this is what it is, this is how we'll spend it, should be adequate, but I know it won't. So thank you, Madam Chair.
This is a robust conversation, and I think gets to my final question for you, Ms. Montooth, is does your office have a clear path to growing services of your agency? Could you grow, and where would you go first if you did grow? What would you want to have first? Would it be a grant manager? Would it be additional services that you could offer? Like where would you like to see resources go in your agency to help address a lot of the problems that we have talked about today? But you and I have had conversations offline as well about some of the limitations of our state's current status with our relationships with our tribal nations. So just curious if you could give us an idea.
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission, for the record. Thank you for that question. I believe you're aware that the Nevada Indian Commission has a 5-person advisory committee. With that leadership, again, we focus on the 3 E's: education, economic development, and the environment, and health and human services. Having grown up in this state, a citizen of the Waka River Paiute tribe, public educated, I've always thought that education is our silver bullet. And it wasn't until maybe 5 years ago that I had an amazing tribal leader tell me, well, Stacy, if we don't have our health, it doesn't matter how good our schooling is. And I would suggest that our biggest need is for an health and human service expert. There's a really big misunderstanding, not just in our state, but nationwide, that Native Americans get health care free, and that's so not the truth. Just like our rural communities, access to preventive health is really difficult. Certainly technology is helping, and telehealth is really impacting some of our communities, but we have the vast majority of our tribes without stable internet. So if I could make a list of priorities, my dreams, one of the first things would be to have a health and human services expert in the capacity of a management analyst for our team, and grow in that similar fashion with an expert in education, an expert in economic development, an expert in education.
Senator Neal.
Thank you. I'm not trying to drag this out too long, but I guess when I listen to you say the healthcare expert and the broadband, I just remember that we've had pieces of legislation or even federal dollars that have come through the state that's not ARPA, that has included tribes. And so I think the larger question for me is that not trickling down? Because I've seen in like the Office of Minority Health and other HHS budgets where tribes, the money can be applied for tribes. And so, and also with the large broadband, I think under Sandoval, we did a huge broadband infrastructure, and then also we did some additional money under Siselac. And so, and I remember it being going into the like Bishop, there were other rural counties where there was a huge discussion about moving broadband into rural counties. And so, were you not touched by these dollars?
Stacy Montooth, the Nevada Indian Commission. Thank you for that question, Senator. We absolutely have been. It's a long process, whether it's fiber or just strengthening the access that is already available, for instance, in the rural area in Washoe County. I want to make certain that you're aware that the Governor's Office of Science and Technology, Director Mitchell, has worked extremely closely and well with the Nevada Indian Commission as well as ITCN. Within the last year, there was a huge successful grant application for a consortium of 13 tribes for stable broadband, as well as, I believe it was 5 tribal nations independently applied for state dollars, for federal dollars. And so it is forthcoming, but it's not in place yet. And I would respectfully ask you to revisit our earlier conversations about the $20 million that is available through the Nevada Indian Commission. Again, I was hoping a 2-page application and we're transferring fundings. You know, the type of grant applications that are required for broadband are much, much more complex. And that's one of the reasons that the 2 advocate agencies, the Nevada Indian Commission and the Intertribal Council of Nevada, got involved to try to provide that technical support for those tribes that just don't have it.
Thank you for that. I think what bothers me is that this isn't a parent-to-child relationship, right? This is a government-to-government relationship. And I think the statute is old enough for us to take a consideration of how we should be assisting another government in the same way that we would assist prior governments that we have engaged in work. And because the relationship is different, because you were the original caretakers and then we are then the government that is in place, I think we need to re-examine how we assist. I think we need to re-examine how we treat the tribes and how we engage in the work of the assistance to make sure that all tribes are healthy, just the same way as we're having a conversation around African American communities, the same way we have a conversation around Latino communities. It is equal, if not greater, that we establish some kind of support to allow you guys to get to the level where you are self-sustaining and move the needle to assist in that area. Because I feel like in the 12 years that I've been in the building, this has been an ongoing conversation that we need to really talk about how we partner and with a sovereign government on how we can remedy and repair damage that has happened to the communities in which we are interacting and have an interrelationship with. So let's talk, let's build a relationship, let's figure out, while people are trying to spend all kinds of money, let's figure out how to do the right thing to serve generations to come.
Thank you for those comments. We have one more question on the Stewart Indian School Living Legacy budget. Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Monteith, for that great presentation. I do have one just quick follow-up question about the curator position for the museum. And I'm curious to know, could you talk a little bit about how that position will improve the museum's educational program and daily operation?
Stacy Montooth, Nevada Indian Commission, for the record. Thank you very much for bringing that up. In a nutshell, we'll be able to expand our services. Please know that we do have our director of the museum, Bobby Rader, is in the room in case you have more specific questions. But currently, our two-person staff operates an entire cultural center and museum, and we are open to the public Monday through Friday from 10 to 5. In a perfect universe, we would have evening hours, we would be open on the weekends. With an additional person, not only could we expend our hours, but we could focus specifically on school groups. I believe you had in some of the information from our last presentation, we've had over 10,000 visitors at the Cultural Center. And keep in mind, this we actually opened to the public in January of 2020, 3 months before the global pandemic. Since our opening in the beginning of that year, we've had 143 groups, and we've had 29 school groups, nearly 800 students. But that has been done by a very, very thin, very, very stretched staff. Having another curator, someone who has background in education, somebody who can help assist educators with lesson plans and, specific presentations based on what the school age is, would be a huge boon for our agency.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? We appreciate you being here this morning and for entertaining our robust conversation. Look forward to further conversations in this area. Thank you. Well, that takes us to the last two budgets that are on our list today. We have budget 2870 and 4216 up next. Please go ahead. State your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning, committee members. Good morning, Chair. For the record, Myron Friedman, Administrator, Division of Museums and History, part of the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. Division of Museums and History oversees 7 state museums throughout Nevada. The museums preserve, share, and promote the understanding and celebration of Nevada's natural and cultural heritage, enriching and engaging visitors and students today and for future generations. Collectively, they are responsible for millions of collection items housed in dozens of facilities. And today I'm presenting on the needs of the Nevada Historical Society and the Nevada State Railroad Museum's enhancements in the governor's recommended budgets. Nevada's oldest cultural institution is the Nevada Historical Society. It's one of the largest repositories of archival materials in the state. On the verge of purchasing and moving into a larger location in 2019, the severe budget cuts of 2020 derailed those plans. Some of you may remember those exciting plans. We were going to move into the large Nelson Building in downtown Reno. So we're still housed in the building on the campus of UNR. To preserve the collection and services, it is imperative the current 1967 facility is maintained, and the building suffers from years of deferred maintenance and requires major renovation and updating of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, ceilings, storage, building exterior, and seismic reinforcing. The maintenance needs is across multiple facilities. The main facility itself, 20,000 square feet, is in fact 3 structures that have been that have developed over the decades. It also includes a large electronic compact storage system, a very sophisticated system. The collections are also stored at 6 off-site locations that require transport and maintenance. And the current staff of 5 are not qualified to maintain buildings. We have curators working there, and they're not adequate for the daily upkeep of the building. The current staff are not qualified to handle maintenance emergencies when the roofs start leaking and whatnot. The Nevada Historical Society is open to the public for museum visitors, for program attendees and researchers, and a well-maintained and clean state facility is a public necessity. It's an expectation, and it also helps to control maintenance costs. In the governor's budget, you'll see that the upcoming CIP requests require an on-site expertise by a facility supervisor who will also operate and maintain the new systems. This includes an upgrade to the security system, upgrades to the fire and life safety systems, to the electrical system. It also includes a building seismic retrofit and envelope maintenance. This is a very large project. And somewhere along the line, we will also work on installing an additional high-density storage system. We'll need the facility supervisor to assist in planning and carrying out the future Nevada Historical Society move. So even though we weren't successful moving into the Nelson Building, at some point in the next 10 years, we hope to see the museum move into a larger facility, more accessible. So the enhancement unit E225 is for a new full-time facility supervisor. The agency requires full-time facility management. Enhancement Unit 227 for the Nevada Historical Society is an upgrade in the fiber connection. This also is necessary to keep up with the appropriate access for their collection for researchers and users, and to help preserve and digitize materials. That's the Nevada Historical Society. I have another presentation on the next budget, but I could take questions now on this section or wait till the end.
We have a couple of questions on this section, so we can take a break real quick to go through those. First of all, deferred maintenance. How long have what's your oldest project that we haven't addressed yet?
The oldest project would probably, well, there are many needs there. The ones that I listed in the CIP are major efforts that will be taken care of, and we're really grateful for the Public Works Board for recognizing that need and passing those along. But the roof on that building and the exterior of that building have cracks in them. And what we're discovering is that the water intrusion behind the stucco is causing major problems. This has been going on for decades, but they're just now recognizing the extent of the damage. That's probably the oldest problem.
Thank you. I own a home that was built in the 1940s, and the upkeep and maintenance is a daily task. Yeah. I have a question from Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. My question pertains to Budget Account 2870 and specifically Enhancement 225. If the facility supervisor position is approved, would the Historical Society have sufficient resources to maintain its facilities?
Myron Friedman, for the record, we could use additional resources to help maintain the building. We have submitted in the past for additional maintenance money, and we hope to continue to work on enhancing that going forward. That is a question, but to begin with, we'll work with the resources we have, and we'll find ways to help them out if they end up having a shortfall in one area or another. We also have additional expertise within the system. We have people working for the State Museum and for the State Railroad Museum. So on occasion, if they need additional help on certain issues, they will be able to lend a hand. So we'll find a way to get it done, but we will be back requesting additional resources for the maintenance of that building.
Thank you. Are there other questions on this particular budget before we move on? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move into the next budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. These are additional one-shots for the Historical Society for computer replacement per the EAT schedule, equipment replacement. This is an ergonomic staff workstation for a new staff member that is disabled. And this is, and again, getting back to Assemblywoman Backus's comment, this would be funds to repair the ceiling, tile, and the plumbing. So these are immediate needs that we're asking funds for. 4216 are the Nevada State Railroad Museums. There are 3 museums in Nevada that focus on the story of railroading in Nevada. There's the Carson City Nevada State Railroad Museum. There's one in Ely, and there's one in Boulder City. And I just want to briefly take a moment to talk about this exciting project. We're building in Ely. This is AB 84, a bond-funded remodel of the freight barn that will open in 2025. And I've provided there the floor plan that's been developed by the architectural firm. This is going to create a community space for events. It's also going to expand the museum opportunities for exhibitions. And it's going to create a special area for holding the archival and records of the Nevada Northern Railway, the history of that exceptional short line railroad. We're very excited about this project. The building is currently used for part of the year. This is going to insulate the building. It's going to put in a fire sprinkler system. It's going to add new bathrooms and hookups for caterers. So while we don't have a request specific to this presentation, I just wanted to make everybody as excited as I am about what's happening in Ely. We did this in consultation with the community. We held 2 community meetings to get input on the development and how this building will serve them in the future. In Boulder City, we're building as well. This is AB 84 bond-funded Nevada Railroad Museum, scheduled to open in 2026. The plans for this building will be shovel-ready this summer. That was paid for through the bond fund, and the additional construction money will come through the next round of bond funding later on in this year. This is an exciting building that will provide a visitor center and a museum facility at the site. And if you're not familiar with our plans down there, allow me a minute just to kind of take you through a few facts about it. What you're seeing there is the vision plan that was done for the site. This is a number of years ago, and we'll be updating this plan in the coming months. But the blue circled areas identify the current location of structures that are serving this museum right now. It includes a shop, a large shop, and then it also includes a train platform and a cover for the collections that are under that platform. The rest of the collection, unfortunately, is out in the open, and that needs to be taken care of in the next phase of development of this site. The yellow area, the yellow circle, represents the building I was just showing you. Will be the new visitor center / museum. That's a 9,000 square foot building, and there will also be a plaza area. There will be new platforms. The museum has strong partners in Boulder City, the City of Henderson and the Department of Outdoor Recreation. All of these groups have come together to help us develop what's happening down there, and this is really a game-changing regional attraction that's developing down there. It's expensive to run a railroad. It's expensive to preserve a railroad. We have developed a lease through state lands that will put a rail bike service on the property. This will be a fairly a great opportunity to receive new revenues down at the for this museum and for the railroad museums in general. That project is still in process. Our agency is working on a potential budget amendment with the GFO. This has not been finalized. The lease will go before the IFC and the Board of Examiners in a couple of months. So this is still in the works. Once we have this in place, the significant lease revenues that are generated by this service will be used to offset the operational and maintenance costs that are associated with having them on the property, but it will also support the large-scale multi-year projects and site improvements. So again, when you look at the collection itself, we're talking about large locomotives that need major work done on them, even to paint all of the equipment is a huge task that will take years to finish. And the track itself all has to be replaced at some point. It's in very bad shape, and the railroad has to maintain its standards to the federal standards. So each of those ties, and there's tens of thousands of them, would have to be replaced at $85 a pop. So you can see right away the expenses get quite extensive. Are there any questions on this unusual lease arrangement we're developing as we over the next few months? I'll move on with our enhancement units. E227, next one. E734 is for the maintenance of buildings and grounds. These are a series of maintenance needs at all three of the railroad museums amounting to $342,000. I have detail on those if you're interested. Also to replace the vehicles at the railroad museums. All of them are more than 20 years old and are in need of replacement. And again, to replace the computers per the EAT schedule. Any questions on 4216?
Thank you. Yes, we have a couple of questions. I'm going to start with Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation and the work you all are doing with our museums and railroads. I have a couple of questions about the Boulder City Railroad Museum and the rail bike. Can you explain how the agency determined an annual need for the $54,000 in operating and maintenance needs associated with the rail bike operations? And how do those costs compare to projected revenues that are to be collected by the state from the rail bike operator?
Thank you. And while I'm answering that first part of the question, I'm going to ask our ASO to join me up here with some of the detail on the other numbers. This is Daphne DeLeon. The impact from the rail bike vendor will bring an additional 4,000 visitors per month, and all of that additional visitation has an impact to staff time, the amount of sanitation supplies, the amount of power and water used, and the general wear and tear on the museum facility and the railroad right-of-way, meaning the track maintenance and the gate that has to be maintained to keep the traffic, to protect people from coming across the tracks. So there's a lot of costs involved just with having them on the property. And the second part, go ahead.
For the record, Daphne DeLeon, Administrative Services Officer. Assemblyman Miller, in regards to how, I guess the cold weather is getting to me. pardon, how we came to the numbers for the ongoing operational cost. Our museum director had looked at cost for utilities and operational costs in category 40, the Boulder City operational category, while we had a prior rail bike vendor on site. He looked at it and had a prorated percentage and developed that estimate of $27,025 each year ongoing. And in Cat 45, which is locomotive maintenance, he looked primarily at a small amount to start replacing the ties that Administrator Friedman had mentioned, and also just general maintenance on the locomotives. Locomotives do need maintenance. Thank gosh we do have staff that are able to do some minor repairs to our locomotives, whether they need new tires, maybe 17 new tires, as opposed to 1 or 4, as we're used to doing on our own cars. And that's where we have come up with the $27,500 each year in Cat 45, and a total of a little over $54,000 moving forward for operational costs between Cat 40 and Cat 45.
One more question? All right, and then just my next question is, with the increase in visitors that the rail bike tour business will create and generate, what other options did we look at for funding these increased expenses to the facilities and maintenance and operating expenses?
So for the record, Daphne DeLeon, ASO, because these expenses and increases are directly tied to the rail bike vendor operations, bringing them on, having more electricity, using more garbage, more water, more sewage, more supplies for janitorial services, more wear and tear on the track and the locomotives, we thought it was best that we actually use these revenues to meet those needs.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the question. But it brings to mind whether or if you can help us with understanding what other options you may have considered besides the general fund option for that's being requested in here. I don't know if that makes if you went through a process of looking at other options and maybe what those options would have or could have been.
Daphne DeLeon, for the record, thank you for the question. The reason that we have looked at a general fund request, it's because of the way NRS requires state land lease revenue to be deposited directly to the state general fund. This is the only way that lease revenues that are being generated by this lease are able to be accessed by this division. There isn't another way for us to access those funds. And in a sense, our general fund appropriation request is being offset by the lease revenues that are being deposited directly from state land office.
It brings to mind the question of the contracting language, right? It sounds like this has been a project you guys have had before, and that you're not concerned about losing this contract. But if we authorize you the general funds and the contract fails or something happens, the company goes out of business, what is the backup plan? What do you guys have thoughts on what would happen if you get to year 2 or 3 and this contract is no longer there?
Myron Freeman, for the record. The answer to that lies in the development of the museum. Those exciting plans I was showing you for the new facilities. We expect the visitation to increase dramatically, for the interest in this museum to increase dramatically in general, for people to want to hold additional events out there. We just expect a huge influx of visitation, and in fact, that's why the City of Boulder City, the Chamber of Commerce, the City of Henderson are all very excited about this and working with us. So this we're envisioning one of the major attractions in that part of the state to be developed right there on the State Museum Railroad site. So we're expecting an influx of revenue as a result of that. It allows us to operate more special trains, which brings in additional dollars. But also the increase in wear and tear on the equipment is something that has to be factored in. This lease opportunity or another vendor opportunity is a way to help defray those costs to make sure that we have the revenues we need to keep the railroad running.
Thank you for those follow-up questions. Are there any other questions from the committee? Oh, sorry, Chair Neal.
It's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just had a quick question on, so in my notes, you guys also have a bill on the city of Ely, it's SB 186. And so what I was trying to figure out in this discussion, you know how NRS 322.010, which requires state land, so I guess credit a certain amount, let me read this right. So it's credit fees for authorized use of state land in the general fund. Does that apply? Will that apply to the SB 186, that Ely Museum bill?
Myron Freeman for the record. I don't feel I have the information to answer that question. I could work with state lands to get you the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that follow-up. If you would either reach out to staff, if that's okay. Yeah, we'll reach out to staff and we can get that follow-up from you. Are there any other questions? Senator Okachia.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And just so there isn't a misconception, the rail in Ely doesn't belong to state lands. It belongs to the foundation. Only the freight depot and the museum building. So it's a little different.
So, okay. Thank you for that, because I thought the museum is what is going to be on the second floor. Who owns that? The state owns that. And
Myron Freeman, I'm sorry.
There's a shifting, right? It's a lease.
Myron Freeman for the record. What the bill contemplates is a change in the status of how we handle that museum. So there would be a lot of I think, consideration about what that would look like. To begin with, the state, in addition to controlling the two buildings on the site, if you're familiar with the site, it's this wonderful historic railway site. It's really a gem in terms of how the state has and the foundation has preserved this short line railroad operation. The state's buildings are two: the freight building or the freight barn and the passenger depot. But we've been there for 30 years, operating these two buildings, developing and carrying out programs, and we've been collecting. So there are thousands of artifacts that the state has in its collection, in addition to the Nevada Northern Railway archives, which were given to the state as well. And there's equipment that's been collected, and three-dimensional artifacts. So there's an impact there. And so we will be making sure that people considering the bill are aware of this impact. How do we house and store all of this material and make it accessible if these buildings are no longer belonging to the state? So what the bill contemplates would be a huge shift in what happens out there. And I think at this meeting, I'm not prepared to break all that down, but as that bill goes forward, we will be addressing some of the questions that it raises.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for the questions and comments. Are there any other questions on these budgets? Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Look forward to the follow-up in the future. All right, I believe that's all of the budgets we were hearing today. So our last agenda item, we can close out those budget hearings and we can move on to public comment. Is there anyone in Carson, oh, excuse me, so we are limiting public comment to 2 minutes a person. We do ask that people who come up for public comment or call in for public comment state and spell their name for the record so that we have an accurate record. I will ask if anyone in Carson City is here to offer public comment today. Seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to offer public comment? Seeing none, BPS, is there anyone on the call-in line who would like to offer public comment today?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close out public comment. And that is it for today. I do believe that we had an overflow day tomorrow for this committee because we were able to get through all of these budgets. We will not be meeting tomorrow. So don't hold me to that. We have no meeting in the morning, but we just won't be meeting as this committee tomorrow, subcommittee tomorrow. With that, we are adjourned.